Welcome to Tales from the Trenches Tuesdays. Today, I am absolutely honored to have my good friend and fundraising colleague, Jason Lewis, on board. For those of you who don't know Jason, he's the founder of Responsive Fundraising, a professional learning community committed to changing what it needs to increase fundraising capacity in today's nonprofit sector. He strives to ensure that leaders understand and experience a holistic approach that is meaningful for those on both sides of the gift exchange. Jason is the publisher of Carefully and Critically Responsive's quarterly professional journal. In addition to all that, where I first learned about Jason was from the book, The War for Fundraising Talent, which is actually one of my little go-to books. I've probably given out dozens of them to fundraising colleagues, and I think it's just a great tool for folks to have. Actually, I was fortunate enough to be at one of Jason's in-person seminars back in 2019, and Jason actually took some little excerpts from his book and have these little cards. And I think even on here, I wrote a whole bunch of notes on it. So you can kind of see Jason is kind of like the founder of those 3-lane approach to fundraising, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I just really wanted to welcome Jason. Both of us have probably been on enough canvases where we've gone and we're planning to pitch, Mr. Smith that day. And you go there and you realize there's a little something in the back of your head saying, this isn't right. Going the way we should, and put it on pause, right? So, another visit or whatever it takes, rather than just saying, okay, you know what, I asked them, so it's checked off on my list. Well, it's really easy to get a refusal.
If you're talking to somebody who lives in a complicated worldview versus a complex worldview, one of the things you'll understand is that the complex thinker will oftentimes design failure intentionally into the process earlier in the process. For example, as an example, it's deliberate. So you want the system, the complex thinker wants the system to fail so as to learn, so as to make the necessary adjustments. The complicated thinker is trying to develop a perfect linear process that works without failure, and anything that sort of goes out of order is considered a problem, whether that's a human behavior or the alternator in my minivan. When you're a complex thinker, for example, we tell our clients, look, as soon as that gift comes through, earliest in the process, begin the process of making deliberate, intentional, meaningful thank you calls so as to begin to discern the character of this relationship so that you can assess the nature of this relationship. Is this going somewhere? A lot of organizations wait till the donor gets to a particular giving level. They wait till they can forecast their capacity. They wait until they can sort of calculate the likelihood that telephone call, that thank you call, is worth making, is basically what happens. So they create so much of a volume of activity that making that kind of volume of thank you calls is just not possible. Or they have these highly technical fundraisers who are scared to death to pick up the phone and say thank you. When a gift comes through, pick up the phone, say thank you, and begin that discernment learning process. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to ask for a meeting. You don't have to, you don't have to know where that phone call is going to go. And the other thing is that the more you make, the more often you're in these conversations, the more the organization learns.
So many good fundraisers have come across this as kind of a calling or as a career that they've really didn't think of when they were much younger. But if they were to look back in hindsight, they would see, hey, I was involved in nonprofits, either as a volunteer or as a donor earlier on in my life, and I really liked that experience. So how was philanthropy spoken about at the Lewis household, like around the dinner table when you were growing up?
It wasn't, Jack. That's kind of it wasn't talked about. We were a very traditional evangelical family who went to church on Sunday and tithing happened or whatever it meant to pass the plate. And then there was a lot of this, and continues to be in my parents' household, sort of a lot of this sort of consumer-like activity where my parents are sort of buying into whatever shows up in their mailbox, largely in response to sort of whatever makes them feel good. If they, buy a T-shirt or a mug that shows up on, they end up sitting up on their banister or something, and so it wasn't, philanthropy meant nothing, because it was just as I would describe it, it was just a consumer-like behavior. And so when I think about it now, the way that I'm trying to ensure that my children understand it, for example, I'm trying to ensure that they understand it very distinct from that consumer-like behavior that we experience in the marketplace.
And that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, how do you decide where to give your time, treasure, and talent?
There were times when we were giving more significantly than we even are right now, and I thought about that question. But this also is very consistent with the theory that I'm sort of beginning to try to convey in this writing project, Jack. It's always been it's always sort of been this local, regional, within arm's reach sort of thing. I mean, if you think about that critique I made in that first book, I use that language of arm's length fundraising to maintain. It's this deliberate distance. When I look across the 25 years that I've had as an adult, and I think about the times and places where we've given in the most significant sort of ways now in the very recent present, and even saying just in the last decade or so, they've been to organizations that were in very close proximity to us. I've been spending a lot of time thinking about sort of the theory of place and what place means, and commitment to place. And that's begun to inform, that's begun to make sense of my own giving habits. And I think in many ways it's the right way to give.
All of us over the last couple of years who have been working from home or doing some things that have given us some more time with our loved ones, have been sitting around that TV at night going, oh my gosh, there's absolutely nothing on to watch. So we're always looking for good suggestions. And because my wife and I have had a hard time finding stuff that we are both interested in. I like the shoot 'em up stuff. I can only watch the house renovation shows so many times before I get stuck with the thought that I'm going to have to renovate our house. So what are you watching? What do you recommend?
So we have for some reason gravitated the last couple of years, even prior to the pandemic, and maybe this is sort of we'll call it the Downton Abbey effect or something, but we have found a lot of enjoyment finding television shows that are that are produced in the United Kingdom, for example. And there's and Netflix allows you to do this. And I don't know, and maybe some of our English listeners could explain this to me. But they do a lot. The sort of the mystery narrative sort of plays out in some of these shows. I mean, even just to be silly, right now we're watching. There is a Law and Order UK, right? So it's the old Law and Order shows, but it's produced. It's playing out in London. And it's a different storyline, and it's a different, maybe it's just because it's less American, I tend to love all my Canadian and English friends lately more than my American friends, and maybe that's what's going on there. But American television hasn't impressed us nearly as much as some of the what is being produced in other parts of the other world, in particular in England. So that's my answer to your question.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Jason, thank you so very much for being my inaugural guest on the Tales from the Trenches Tuesdays. I couldn't think of anyone else that I would rather have as my first guest. You and I have known each other, I think it's 3 or 4 years now. And I count you as one of my good confidants when it comes to fundraising, and you're a great guy to just bounce ideas off of. So if folks wanted to get hold of you, how would they do that?
Yeah, so thank you, Jack. I do consider you a friend as well. Certainly more than just a professional colleague, and I look forward to the opportunities that we have to be together in person when those opportunities arise. Best place to find me and to find my consulting team is at responsivefundraising.com. Again, that's www.responsivefundraising.com. I'm sure you can put that in the show notes. And then my email address is just very simple. Is just simply put the word Jason in front of that. Jason at responsivefundraising.com. It's the easiest way to find me. Most people, Jack, find me on LinkedIn. I'm a pretty popular voice on LinkedIn. I've got a lot of. I'm usually posting at least every other day. Got a lot of people counting on me to post something snarky or smart or opinionated. And I
think it's thought-provoking.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
Right? And I love reading your stuff because you and I kind of sing from the same hymnal. So, if nothing else, it just kind of affirms my beliefs. And that I'm not, because sometimes as a fundraiser, you think that you're alone on an island somewhere. And no one really understands you, and you're just some beast that they kind of throw meat at every now and then. But when I hear folks like you, and we're kind of singing from the same hymnal, I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm not totally off my rocker. It's helpful. So thank you very much for doing that.
Hey, Jack, it's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
Hi, folks. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button right here.